All right. Welcome back to the Partnership Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lavoie. Amanda Nielsen is one of the most interesting voices in the partnership world because she's not just in the work, she's translating it. She's built a reputation for calling partnerships what it actually is, not a dot connecting job, but an alignment job that execs actually trust. She's also the creator behind Pivot to Partnerships, a 4-week cohort helping people break into partnerships without needing a partnerships title first. And she's become one of the clearest, funniest, and most honest educators in the space. Today, we're going to go deep on why partnerships is such a slept on career path, what actually makes someone good at it, and the unglamorous truth that separates the partnerships that look perfect on paper from the ones that actually work. Amanda, so happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Chris. Stoked to be here.
Amazing. Look, well, we start every interview off with what we call the Fast Five. So these are just short, quick hitting questions, gives you an opportunity to warm up, gives the audience an opportunity to get to know you a bit better before we get into the real stuff. You ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So first one, you famously got 100,000 likes on a single LinkedIn post, which I am insanely jealous of. This is like an entire year's worth of engagement for most people. What did that post teach you about what people really respond to on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that post is like my pride and joy of my career. I always
Should be.
joke that like 100K engagements on LinkedIn is like the equivalent of like 10 million Instagram likes. Cause
At
like
least.
it's so different. Like the engagement rates are insane and how like the LinkedIn relative to everything else. Like I have a meme page that I run where I'll get, you know, 500,000 engagements, and that basically means nothing, and it'll get, like 1 million views versus LinkedIn. To get 100K views or 100K likes, you're getting like
Yeah.
9 million views.
Yep.
So the ratios are kind of funny like that. But that post was it's amazing because every time I have a post that really pops off, it's always the ones that I'm like, "Eh." It's like a
Yeah.
throwaway that I just, like, put together in 2 seconds. And it was essentially me clowning on that, like, funny little graphic that auto posts when you, like, start a new job or whatever, and people
Uh-huh.
always, start the post, like, "Happy to announce I'm doing XYZ career thing,"
Uh-huh.
and I made my own version that was, like, "Happy to announce, like, I tried my best."
Yeah. I love
And
that.
that really resonated with people, like, so much so. And basically, like, my sentiment in making that post was that we should be celebrating kinda the little wins in the day to day,
Yeah.
as opposed to just career milestones, like and it really was an opportunity for the community to engage too, so everyone was, like, commenting being like, "Ooh, like, tried my best," like, "That's so funny," or like, "Dog didn't bark on my Zoom
Yeah.
calls today," or like, "Remembered to eat lunch," just, like,
Yeah.
silly
Yeah.
things like that. So I think the thing that really made it pop off was just the relatability and
Totally.
the option for people to chime in with their own take on it, and it became, like, this whole thing, people were, like, recreating it. LinkedIn has since stopped using the graphic, I think, because people kinda just see it as a meme now, which is kind of a
It's
funny
funny.
accolade to have on my resume, but yeah, my
That's
pride and
hilarious. No, I love that. I think yeah, you're right. Like I think like some of us, a lot of us struggle with like the LinkedIn's and Instagrams of the world because what you're typically seeing people post is like the best version of themselves. Right? Like me at the beach on vacation looking fly, or this new promotion or new outcome. But it's like those are like the fleeting moments that exist, right? Like what about just like your run of the mill stuff that is meaningful on like an average Tuesday, but maybe doesn't make headlines. So like I think yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think that it was relatable, which I love. Next up for you, second fast five question is you're a big vibes person, right? I picked that up. So give me your fastest. The vibes are off. Tell that you can spot in say 30 seconds. Say in the confines of partnerships, like maybe it's a first partnerships call or some type of meeting, and you're just like your vibes antenna radar is tingling. You're like, something's off here. Like, what are some of the signals that might give you that reaction?
Great question. I think, like, it's challenging to articulate exactly what it is. I think everyone has this, like, intuition, where they can sense whether or not this is someone that, like, they would wanna grab coffee or lunch with. Like, that's
Right.
kind of my biggest, measure, is not so much, like, what you say about, like, your work or your company or what you're trying to do partnerships-wise. It's more of like a gut feeling of like, do you give off a good vibe as a person? Are you someone that I can see myself having like a good working relationship with?
Sure.
Um, I think that is something that matters, honestly, like, above all else because and we'll probably get into this more later, like, everything can be, like, a really great fit on paper, but if it's someone that you just clash with personality-wise, it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, totally. And as a follow-up to that, question number 3 here, something that I'm impressed by and appreciate about you is, like, you're not afraid to, like, call things out that are, like, pervasive within, say, tech, right? Like misogyny, all the other BS that comes with it. So, like, what's something you refuse to tolerate in tech culture that people still try to pass off as, like, "We're just joking," right? Which we know all these, like, microaggressions, sometimes macroaggressions. And again, I appreciate that you're about that life. So, like, what are some things that you're still seeing that you're like, people are like, maybe it's men, like they're trying to pass off as like just jokes, but it's like, come on, like enough's enough. Like we need to cut that shit out.
Yeah, great question. I mean, definitely any sort of like, bigotry or prejudice in the workplace, obviously. I think in the past 5 years, it's become a lot more commonplace to one, like not do those things, but two, to like be comfortable calling them out, even if you're not like a thought leader putting people on blast.
Right.
I think like that will, first and foremost be something I don't tolerate. And I think the other thing too is just like, people, especially in leadership, trying to tell individuals that they can't have passions and side projects and, like, a brand outside of their
Hmm.
direct job. I talk to so many of my peers who, are maybe, like, earlier in their careers or maybe they're just starting to post and be outspoken and build a personal brand, and their companies are, like, quietly telling them that it's not allowed essentially and trying to kinda, like, squash that before it starts,
Yep.
which I think is so tragic because having folks at your organization that are empowered, that are, being thought leaders, that are being authentic on social media is, like, a net benefit 100% of the time, so I
I,
hate that. Whenever I encounter that, I am, like, so
I
over that.
totally, I totally agree with you. And I have another question later in the interview on exactly that topic. That was one that really pissed me off. So I hear you loud and clear on that. Two quick ones to get you out into the main stuff. So you're anti buzzword again. Like all of my studying of Amanda Nielsen, I've learned some things. The vibes, the anti buzzwords. So what's one B2B buzzword that you just wish would be just like purged from the internet forever? And what should people say instead, perhaps, for that term?
It's a good one. I think synergy is, like, one that I would count on because
I can
synergy
see
is
the
just like
cringe. I can see your
yeah,
body have a visceral reaction.
I think synergy is just like a more corporate word for vibes, and I'm like, "Why don't we just call it what it is?" It's like we
Uh,
have synergy, it's like, "Okay, boring," or it's like, "Do we vibe?" Like, are we girling out
sure.
together? Are we having a nice time? Are we having a laugh? Like, I
Yeah, yeah.
think thing like that where we can just be more fun and casual is what I always
I
aim
love
for.
that. All right, everybody listening, all your documents, Control F, replace all systems with vibes,
Yeah.
or synergy. Sorry, with vibes. I love that. Cool. All right, last one. This is again going back from the content I've seen you put out there. So the aunt and uncle test when it comes to like explaining what we all do. So would love to hear you explain what you do in partnerships. Like you're at Thanksgiving, right, and your aunt is judging you quietly, wondering what is my niece Amanda doing over there in partnerships? What does that job actually look like? And
Yeah.
not to like mock your aunt's voice. I'm sure it's very lovely.
No, it was pretty on par. Um, essentially, like, I start by saying this is for people who are like, "Well, what the heck is that?" I start with something that people, like, generally understand. I'm like, "I'm in sales, technically, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in a specific function of sales where I'm not the one doing the direct selling.
Yep.
Rather, I'm managing relationships or essentially, like, selling the idea of
Yep.
working as a partner with the company that I'm at."
Yep.
And my job is to essentially align different internal teams at the partner and at my organization to make more money. And that, it happens in a lot of different ways, but through co-selling, co-marketing, any sort of joint go-to-market efforts, ultimately is kind of how I sum up the role. And then I say, it's a lot of meetings and introductions and traveling and events and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And I go, okay, we still don't get it, but
Yeah, trust me. I mean, yeah, I've been in it for like 7 years now, and I explain it all the time, and they still don't get it. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine with it. But maybe I need to take your attempt. Cool. All right. Well, thanks. Now you're fully warmed up, and now the audience has a much better understanding of you. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of it all. So we have about 4 key segments. Segment 1 is always the same for all guests, and it's just your origin story because we all have very different paths. I like have breaking into partnerships. I have a PhD in organic chemistry. How the heck did I end up here? Right. So we all have different paths. So for you, you started in the HubSpot ecosystem, then partner marketing, then partnerships in SaaS. So I'm curious, what was the first moment you can remember where you realized, like, oh, like partnerships is actually pretty dope. This is actually a place I think I want to stay for a while. Like, what was your kind of first aha moment? And as you think about it, Amanda, for me, it was I cut my teeth in tech partnerships and I was like, wow, I get to like focus on like commercial stuff and I get to like be pretty close to product. And that to me was just very satisfying for my geeky brain. So that was me. Curious, like, what was your moment where you're like, oh, like this is actually like a good place for me to be for a while?
Yeah. I kind of stumbled into partnerships. I originally went to school for marketing
Hmm.
and I got an internship in college at a marketing firm, a HubSpot agency specifically. I didn't really know what that meant, like what it meant to be a HubSpot agency or anything about that. I was just like, okay, great. Like I have a job. This rocks. And I started out as an internal, like in-house marketer. So I wasn't marketing for clients. I was marketing for the marketing firm.
Yep.
And a lot of that included, talking about being a HubSpot partner. So I really got to learn the ins and outs of like the benefits of why you should work with a HubSpot partner as opposed to just any old marketing firm. And in that, I also got to do a ton of work with HubSpot themselves on the co-marketing front. And my favorite thing was like driving down to Boston, getting in the HubSpot offices, like getting to meet people, getting to do like different networking events, doing like podcasts and videos and just like creating
Yep.
content with this other org, and meeting people through that. So I was
Uh,
like, "Whoa, like this is awesome. This is my favorite part of my marketing job. Like I hate sending emails, I hate writing blog posts. Like I really like the partnership side of it." And then when I found out that was like a full job that I could do, I was like, "Wait, I need to be doing this full time."
Well, that's great. So then, okay, so let's now talk about this new profession that you love and fell in love with, and I did as well, partnerships. So the next segment is called "Why Partnerships is a Slept On Career Path," which is obviously something I know you're quite passionate about. So, and then you said in our prep that partnerships is slept on, and you have some multi-threaded opinions on that I want to start pulling on. So the first question for you on this one, Amanda, is like, why is the talent pool so tiny relative to what it should be? Like, partnerships is booming in terms of demand from like companies and executives, but just because they're demanding it doesn't mean that the actual supply of people trying to enter the workforce is matching that. So, my first question for you is like, why do you think there's not more people, trying to break into partnerships relative to what we really need from a supply side?
Yeah. I think it's kind of twofold. It's like one, people don't really know what it is still.
Right.
Like even
Yeah.
people who are like in the space, even the people that I work with in other functions like sales and marketing day to day, they work with the partner team, but they still don't really fully understand exactly what it is we do.
Yep.
So lack of awareness of like what the job is, what it entails, and then the upside. So like what the day to day is like, why it's awesome, like what the benefits are. I think people kind of lack awareness of like how awesome the role and the function really is. Um, and then I think also lack of resources. So even the people who maybe do know what it is, understand why it's a great path, um, they don't know where to go. And that's what prompted me to put together the pivot to partnerships career cohort. Because when
Uh,
I was pivoting in, there was like you couldn't just Google like what is partnerships, how to get a partnerships role. Like that was
yep.
like 6 years ago, and there was even less content then. And so I think people just really lack the place to go. Like if you want to break into sales, if you want to break into marketing, there's like a million and one organizations and
Yep.
courses and websites and all these different like educational assets on like how to break into those career paths because they're so like tried and true. But
Uh,
partnerships is still so new relative to those other functions that that content and that enablement just like doesn't exist until now. It's starting to obviously pick up
totally.
with the partnership mastermind marketplace and whatnot, but it's just
Totally.
not there.
I love that. And we're gonna in a moment we're gonna pivot into partnerships. But the last question in this segment, and something you said I totally agree with, is around like AI's like disruption or not of the partnership profession. And so I want to tee this up for you in saying that people who are, say, maybe in sales or other functions who are considering getting into partnerships, they might ask themselves the question, well, should I even try to get into partnerships? Like, is that role going to be eliminated like so many of these other roles? Whereas you've been on the record and saying, like, look, partnerships is more on the safer side of the spectrum when it comes to like AI is coming for knowledge worker jobs, which I personally totally agree with. So help anyone who's maybe in partnerships role right now considering leaving, which by the way, 40% of people are considering, or if you're considering getting into partnerships and they're intimidated by it, help them feel more at ease with your strong thoughts on like how AI isn't going to eliminate us off the face of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's such an important topic. Like, the thing that I always say is, like, AI is for automating tasks, automating things that don't necessarily require, like, a human touch, which is why we can count on technology to be able to get rid of these things, and partnerships is so not that. Partnerships is such like a relationship-oriented and, like, alignment job that it's just gonna be really difficult to take that away, and, like, the magic of, like, what makes partnerships so effective is the fact that it's humans working together, right?
Yep.
Um, and so trying to automate that away would, one, like, defeat the purpose of it and, like, kinda get rid of what makes it so great, but like I was just saying too, like, it's so early. Like, we are so far from having the technology to be able to automate that, like, marketing and sales, for example, that technology space is so saturated. Like, we can all probably name, like, 5 to 10 marketing and sales tools off the top of our heads, right?
Yep.
Um, but partnerships tools, not so much. The average
Yep.
person definitely can't name that many. So the
Yep.
technology is not mature. We can barely automate really basic workflows, let alone an entire person's job.
Totally.
Um, so all of those elements combined, like I think it's really unlikely. And also the fact that the demand is growing. Like you see companies that have been operating for 20 years who are public and generating billions of dollars in revenue a year just now starting to invest in partnerships. And that's not going to slow down. And I think as AI becomes more pervasive and we encounter more like AI slop and more like inauthentic connections, people are going to kind of desire this like human to human interaction even more so. And I think the demand will just grow greater from there.
Yeah, and that last point I totally resonate with. I think people are gonna there's gonna be this like great resistance. I'm like predicting where people are gonna be like, "Oh, AI is amazing," and then everyone's gonna be like, "Well, shit, like this isn't my life's not better. Like whose
Yeah.
lives are better? The richest people in the world's lives got better, but like did the rest of us get a better life? Not really." So I'm with you. And then the other thing I'll say on your eloquent response on like how like AI is not going to totally disrupt things is like, look, partnerships is I think is safer for another reason, which is you have all of these people you got to deal with internally, but then you multiply that by two because you have all these other people you have to orchestrate and align to use your point on the external side for a given partner. And oh, by the way, how many partners do you have? Maybe you have 100, right? So like AI can't possibly manage all of your stakeholders internally, all of the stakeholders externally, multiply it by your entire partner portfolio base. So AI needs to enable and empower us, but it can't replace us. Certainly not in partnerships. So I'm
Yeah.
with you. Cool. All right. Well, now let's talk about your entrepreneurial career and your passion project with Pivot to Partnerships, and which is a fantastic program, which we'll talk a lot about, where you're really helping people do exactly that, pivot into partnerships. And if you've already pivoted into partnerships, making sure that you have like a really successful launch point. So you're convinced that you want to stay in partnerships. So I got a bunch of questions for you, but the first one is like, look, you're a proven pro, a great track record. You could teach a ton of advanced operator tactics. So my question is why focus on people entering or trying to enter partnerships versus other more advanced stages of the partnership life cycle? Like what is it about that stage people are just coming in or trying to break in that kind of compels you to focus there versus on like co-selling or partner activation strategy?
Yeah. So the cohort started out of kind of this need where people were coming to me like inbound asking for like one-on-one
Yep.
mentorship and advice. Um, I've always been a content creator and I've always really loved like using my platform to help other people advance in their careers, whether it's talking about, how to not tolerate bullshit in the workplace or how to make more money or, XYZ. And so I've always had this kind of like passion and interest for like mentoring and helping other people learn from like my mistakes and my experience on this like public forum. Um,
Mhm.
And so in getting all these like one-on-one requests for like helping people wanting to break in, I found that I had like all this like knowledge that was just like pouring out of me that I've just accumulated over the years from just like falling into it and figuring it out. Like I didn't really have anyone helping me.
Yep.
Um and so, when I was able to fill that gap one-on-one for a few people and help people land jobs, I was like, wait, like this is really exciting. This is really fun for me. This is super fulfilling. And like, how do I help more people? And obviously I have like a full-time job and a bunch of other side projects still. So the cohort and the course was really like the best way for me to help share that knowledge at scale. And so that's kind of what got me into it.
I love that. Well, we're very grateful for it because there's not nearly enough people. Well, there's really only you that I can think of that is like really focusing on such a pivotal point in their career. And I'm very passionate about that as well. As a quick personal anecdote, I spent 10 years in a lab, PhD academic chemist, thought I was going to become a professor. And then I just had a full blown quarter life crisis and I was paralyzed. I was like, I had this like entrepreneurial side of me showing up, but I didn't understand it. I thought I wanted to get in the business world, but how do you do that? And so I literally cold DM'd like 50 people on LinkedIn who had like PhDs in science, but were now in the business world. And I just said, hey, help me escape. And I took like 10 calls and they did. And it really helped me understand how to get out of it. And so I've always said I want to pay it forward. So if anyone ever reaches out to me and says, hey, Chris, I'm sure you're busy, but like I'm stuck, I'm in sciences, can you help me get out? I always take that call. So like it sounds like you're similar where it's like you went through pain of trying to like navigate career turbulence, which we all go through. And it doesn't really get much more impactful than that. So does that kind of resonate with you, Amanda, of like you felt the pain and so you feel this like duty, but also fulfillment and excitement to like pay it forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, I had no idea this career path existed. I wish someone would have told me. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that, like, I stumbled into it, like, basically at the very beginning of my career, like, when I was still in college.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine the world we'd be in, or at least I'd be in, if I hadn't done that, if I was
Yep.
still in marketing. And I think also partnerships is just very important to me because it just has like, really changed my life in terms of like what I can provide for myself. And, maybe we'll get into this a little bit. I know this is something we really dive into in the cohort is just like partnerships as a job is so high leverage because like one, you're networking for a living and building
Yeah,
my network, building my platform, having this community has impacted me like more than any job will ever impact me. And
totally.
it's just like, truly life changing. So like there's that aspect. And two, like just the flexibility and the earning potential of partnerships, I think is one thing that people just don't even know anything about. Because 'cause
Yep.
I've always been someone who, like, I am very, like, goal oriented, I'm incentive driven, but I never really saw myself as, like, a sales rep, like, I never was like, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think I'm
Same.
interested or have the right personality type for being like an account executive or an SDR, but I have some of that, but I also have all these other like unique skills around like marketing and
People
like,
relationship.
yeah, relationships, business development, content creation. And so I had all these different like muscles that I wanted to be able to flex and I couldn't figure out how to do it in these like standard like marketing,
Uh-huh.
sales, customer success, go to market functions. But partnerships really allowed me to come in and just like blossom and use like all of my skills. And then also just, you know, really basic things like paying off all my debt and helping me like buy a house when I was 25 as just like a single girl, just all these things I never really saw for myself. And I know for a fact that if I had stayed in marketing, I would not have been able to achieve.
No, I love that. And listening to you, like, it reminds me of something I say all the time about why I love the partnerships role so much is it's so entrepreneurial, right? Like it's CEO-esque. And now that I am in that position, building my own business, so much of what I learned in partnerships, having to be strong in every discipline. In a given day, in a given week, you might get on a call with product people, engineering people, marketing people, customer success, sales, and you need to context switch and sound like an expert. And so that's really helped me in my own entrepreneurial career. So in just listening to you, yeah, it is, you get to kind of do all of the great things but you're not handcuffed to one, right? Because I'm with you. Like, if I just had to sell all day long, I would burn out quickly. So I love the breadth of it. So now let's talk about your actual program, which has been a huge success. and we're thrilled to welcome you to the Partnership Mastermind Marketplace. But like help the listeners understand like what's the structure, what's the curriculum, and what's happening each week.
Yeah. So it's a 4-week cohort consisting of content modules each week. There's two main concepts. And then we do a 1 hour live session facilitated by me and then with the other cohort members. So we recover like the content, let people ask questions, do discussion, kind of like hot seat exercises. So that's the structure for all 4 weeks. And I kind of think of it as like two different halves. So the first half is weeks 1 and 2. Like, what is partnerships, first of all? Like, what is it as a role? What is the day to day like? What sorts of traits make you successful in this role? And like, what is it actually as a job? And what are the upsides? So, talking about like the comp structure and like all the different things that, make it a really awesome career path. And then also, how does it work functionally inside a business? So, it's like partnerships as a professional individual and then partnerships as a business, and what are the different types of partnerships and how does it work, like, well, how does the money flow, what are the different tasks that you're going to do day to day. So
Yep.
weeks 1 and 2 are really like, what is partnerships and why do we want to do it? And usually from there people are like, okay, great, like this is actually a really good fit for me. And then from there, once we've confirmed that it's a good fit, then we use weeks 3 and 4 to figure out, okay, like based on your unique background, what is your path of least resistance in actually moving into a partnerships role? And like, how do we craft this narrative and draw parallels between, your past roles and an actual partnerships role? And really, like, how do you pitch yourself to be in partnerships despite not necessarily having that role on your resume already?
Totally.
Um, and then, that last week especially is like very tactical, like, okay, here's like how we need to tweak the resume, the LinkedIn, like here are the questions you need to be asking in job interviews. Here are the red flags to look out for. And like, here's how to make sure you don't wind up in a role where you're not set up for success. Because like, while partnerships is so new and that has a lot of benefits, it also comes with a few, caution signals where like
Sure.
not he knows how to set it up correctly. A lot of people are kind of like still building the plane as they fly it, which can be hard, especially when you're pivoting in and brand new. So helping people really make sure that the role that they land is going to be successful.
I love that. And as I've said repeatedly, that it's such a valuable need. And as a quick note, like anyone listening, maybe you're already in partnerships given our typical audience. But if you're saying a leadership management position, you're constantly recruiting, and there might be people on your sales team like BDRs, SDRs, even CSMs, AEs, and they're great people to recruit internally to pull over into your partnerships team. So don't discount the value that Amanda's program could offer internal lateral moves, which I've personally done many times. And the best hires I've ever made were actually typically like BDRs and SDRs because they have such a fire.
Mhm.
They're not afraid to fail. They have certain skills that are hard to teach. And then you just got to coach them on partnerships, which, as I said, is a great fit for Amanda's program.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the best partnerships people that I've worked with have been lateral moves from within the company. And yeah, I've had a lot of people who are even like early stage in their first partnerships role already join the cohort and just kind of get the fundamentals down. So yeah, can't say enough about that.
100%. And then the second last question on this one is like just a follow up to that. Like, what would you describe as the program promise, right, for your program? Meaning, what should a student be able to do by the end of that program that they couldn't do at all or as well before they went through your program?
Yeah, I'd say again, the fundamental understanding of like what partnerships is and what all the different types are, and really having like just been armed with the knowledge of like going into these conversations, not freaking out because you don't know what all the acronyms are. Like there's not a ton of like true like single source of truth in terms of like what partnerships are, like what types exist, how they
Yep.
work. And there's a lot of instances where people are calling partnerships like things that it's not actually like. This happens a lot. Like I'll talk to folks who are like, well, I've been in a role where like I was technically a sales rep, but like my title had partnerships in it, or like, what about this role where it's called client partner? And it's
Mm.
like there's a
Yeah. Yeah.
lot of use of the word partnerships by
Yeah.
companies.
Brand partners. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, like, it's confusing to people, so this is kind of like a crash course that will help people to, like, be able to go look at job listings, scan for certain keywords, and, like, figure out what's real and what's not.
Yep.
Um, and then also just being confident going in and pitching yourself despite like, not having that title under your belt, like knowing exactly what it is that you have that makes you a more valuable hire than someone who's maybe had two partnerships manager jobs. Um, and I
Totally.
think like having the perspective of someone who has been in partnerships, has been on the hiring side, knowing like what I have looked for in the past in candidates, I think
Yeah.
it's just really valuable knowledge that people just can't really get access to outside of this like cohort format.
Yeah, that one of that last part is something I really appreciate about your content, and having seen all of your weekly program slides is around like transferability of skills and like coaching them to like leverage that. Because like, look, in an interview environment, like you just can't BS, right? You haven't done the job. We know that, like they know that, right? So don't BS them. And so as I think about my own first interview experience, I had like 10 years of academia and then 1 year of consulting, and then I was interviewing for my first tech partner manager job in like a very intense Series A environment. And their VP partnerships is like, okay, look, we've got another candidate who's got years of experience, right? They're more expensive than you are, but they have more years of experience. So, like, why should we hire you? Like, point blank. And I was like, look, what I developed in getting a PhD in chemistry is I can learn insanely fast, right? Because I have to, right? I am super comfortable with complex data. I work really well in an intense environment where I wasn't trying to hit quote, I was trying to publish papers, or my ass was on fire, so to speak. So like I'm comfortable with all of these crazy complexities that your average person is gonna like completely shit the bed and fold under, right? So like just trust that I'm maybe I don't have all these skills yet, but just trust I'm gonna ramp faster than anyone else you could possibly hire, and I'm only gonna get better. And like I literally said it just like that. So does that resonate, Amanda, with like that was my unique example in chemistry, but like does that resonate with how you kind of coach people like, hey, like, what are your superpowers? Many superpowers can translate to any job. You just need to be able to like communicate and storytell in the right way. Does that kind of translate?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, what is the thing that you have that can't be taught? Because ultimately, like,
Mm,
you can teach people how to manage relationships, how to run playbooks, how to do all this stuff. But if you have like really niche experience or knowledge, like that is super transferable. Like this one girl I worked with very early on, before I even started the cohort, she had a title that was like VP of commercial banking at one of the big banks. And she was like, I want to move into partnerships, which
mm,
felt like such like a drastic move. But I was like, well, let's think about like what someone in partnerships actually like needs and what skill sets might be applicable to hers. And I was like, well, what about like financial services or fintech? You have all this like
sure.
rich experience of being this like higher
Yeah,
up
yeah.
person banking space, like, where does that experience come in very, like, valuable? And then you think about it, it's like the types of partnerships roles where the big bank is their ideal partner, right? Like, any sort of
100%.
financial services technology is like, "Okay, we wanna make partnerships with all the big banks." And so that was where we really zeroed in, and so that was kind of the path of least resistance, and it's like she comes in and is like, "I have 5 years of commercial banking experience, that is way more valuable and something you just can't teach. And also the connections and the Rolodex that she had too, like that's going to blow, a 5 year, 10-year partner manager at a totally different type of company or industry out of the water. And so that was where she ended up. She moved over to like a payments platform.
Totally. That's super smart actually. Not just the transferability of skills, but knowledge. So like, look, if you spent a career in the financial services sector, well then maybe a more reasonable place to start is in like the fintech sector, so to speak. Yes, you have to ramp up on all the associated skills with being in partnerships, but at least you are a credible domain expert in the field that you're entering. So I think that's a really smart advice. Cool.
Totally.
Last question on the coaching side, and then we're gonna get into the last segment. This is more of a spicy question, which is when it comes to you have a full time job. I ran my own course for 2+ years when I also had a full time job, but there are visible big name leaders who I will not name, but I wish I could, who have publicly questioned whether or not people like you and I should have coaching slash side projects. And their messaging is you should instead just focus on your job, deliver better impact on your job. These people have made posts about this. They've tried to intimidate me. They've tried to intimidate my instructors. Again, I'm not naming names, right? But it really pisses me off, right? Candidly. So what would you say to people like that who are telling us just like, be a good boy or good girl and just focus on your full-time job. Don't worry about your side projects. Just, do a better job at your company. And then in 10 to 20 years, you can start to think about these things. Because it really drives me nuts. So I'm just curious what your reaction is.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I mean, my candid take is just like high performers are gonna high perform. And like you can't stop.
Preach.
And if you want to retain high performers, like you have to be flexible and you have to embrace the fact that like they're going to be doing things outside of just your role because they want stimulation. They want to challenge themselves um and push themselves and tee themselves up for like the future, right?
Yep.
And you're just not going to be able to retain top talent if you have that attitude. You'll be able to retain people who are,
B
me
players.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
scared, not super driven, which is fine. But yeah, like that's my 2 cents. Like as, someone who is a high performer, have crushed quota my entire career, like I'll never join a company that doesn't support like my side endeavors ever. Like they'll never
100.
work with me.
100.
And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And I just like just feels really ignorant. And it's funny too, because it's like it's so self-serving for them to say that because if you look
Uh-huh.
at it, like, very objectively, like, there's a bajillion upsides to having people in your company building a
Yeah.
personal brand. Like, I can't even count the amount of times people have been like, "I didn't know anything about the company you work at, and I literally only found out about it because of you."
Exactly.
Um,
No,
so yeah.
especially you have a big brand, like exactly. You have a big brand. I totally agree. I had like one boss one time kind of like say something to me about it. And I'm like, look, I'm making, a little bit of extra cash, right? So that makes me more satisfied with the shitty income that you're paying me. I didn't say it this way, obviously, right? I'm networking, which is attracting people to our business. I'm building my own credibility, which builds credibility within my partner ecosystem, which directly benefits this company. When by the way, I'm opening up a bigger talent pool of people I could potentially hire into. Do those sound like good benefits? Because guess what? I'm happier. I'm literally happier in my life because I have this thing, which makes me question my employment much less. Right. And then they shut up quickly. Right. So it's like, I loved your phrase of like just high performers going to high perform. But you're right. Like, I love people who are ambitious. So the worst thing you can do to ambitious people is try to blanket it. Right. Because then they completely burn out. They completely lose trust. And then they're as good as gone. So it's good to hear you say that because I totally agree with you. Sweet. All right. We'll finish up here on the last segment, which is on personal brand, which is something that you have done a phenomenal job building for yourself. So like, look, you're as of this recording, you're around 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. And you've got there by being authentic, not by chasing the algorithm of the week, so to speak. So I'm curious, like, first question is like, what's your relationship right now with like LinkedIn, which I know is kind of a meta question, but like, like for me, it's like, it's my primary growth mechanism to build my business, right? Like 60, 70% of my pipeline comes from like indirectly or directly through LinkedIn. So like, for me, I have this really close relationship where I really depend on it. So I'm curious, how would you characterize your relationship with LinkedIn?
Yeah. I'd say it's like my favorite creative outlet, and social outlet. I've always been like a social media person, and I've always been a career person. I've always been very driven and interested in entrepreneurship and making money and being really good at my job. Like I love that. So when I can combine the two, like being kind of
Yeah, yeah.
funny, being able to make jokes, make people laugh, entertain them, plus like work stuff, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So I think for me, like LinkedIn is just like a fun place for me to be and to have community. But it
Love that.
also is, I think, a growth driver for me. It's just given me a platform to continue like showcasing my knowledge and like challenging myself in a public forum and increasing my credibility in ways that, are visible to people outside of my company and outside of my partner network, my day-to-day job. So
Yep.
I definitely use it as like a growth mechanism and a way to continue building my network and meet people who are interested in like the cohort or mentorship, and things like that. So
Love
yeah,
that.
LinkedIn is my favorite social media.
I mean, that's same with me. I haven't had Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, anything like that for like 6 years. So for me, it's like my wife always jokes like, it's like that's everything. Like LinkedIn is like my number one app. So next question is, and this is the second last one of the whole interview, is like, what advice would you have for like your typical partner manager or partner pro listening right now who's got 750 or 1,000 connections, thinking, why even try? Like, I'm never going to get to the Amanda Nielsen's level. I'm never going to get 5 to 10,000 connections. And like, look, like when I started a couple years ago, I only had like around 1,000, and then now close to like 12. So like, what advice would you have for someone of like just getting started and the importance of just getting started because it's not going to happen overnight, right? But over a couple of years, which is not that long if we really zoom out, eventually you'll get there. So, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think starting early is like the most important thing you can do. Like now is the very best time.
Yep.
5 years ago was even better. I was very fortunate to like in the curriculum at the school I went to, it was very progressive and all the business students, like as just a general prerequisite to graduate, had to go through these different kind of like extracurriculars.
Yep.
And one of the exercises and workshops that we did was like, you have to create a LinkedIn.
Uh,
And so
that's cute.
my like second year or even maybe it was first year of undergrad, like they were like, all right, pick your LinkedIn and you're going to connect with all your classmates and your professors and you
That's
have no
funny.
job experience except like you've worked at like dog daycare and like a Ralph Lauren outlet, but like put that on there and we're going to start building the skills. And obviously as my career grew, like I had more important stuff to say and to put on there, but I've been doing this since I was a teenager, which is crazy. Like I was literally like 19. And, like your example, like having gone from, would you say 1,000 to 12,000 in like a very short span,
Couple
like
years.
yeah, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. It took me 10 years to get 20,000 followers, and that was, like, a lot of, like, passive growth. It's like, if you lock in for just a couple years, like, you can grow a lot.
Yep.
So, yeah, now is better, than never, and I think just, like,
Totally.
being unafraid to just go and just post and be cringe and share and connect with everyone you know. Like, I'll literally go to, like, social events, and the average person it's so funny, I used to say, when I would go to the bars, like, sometimes if I was out, like, meeting guys this is when I was single, and, like, earlier in my 20s, I'd be like, "Connect me on LinkedIn." Oh, like, "Connect with me," because they'd,
Yeah.
like, ask for my Instagram, my number. I'm like,
Yeah.
Let's
No,
connect
no,
on
no.
LinkedIn
Whoa, whoa.
first."
Let's start slow there,
Yeah, I
pal.
was like, 1, like, I'm
Chill.
trying to grow my network, and 2, like, I
Yeah.
wanna a real job,
Yeah.
that's, like, an extreme example,
That
but, like, I'm
is
always connecting
hilarious.
people.
That
Yeah, and it's just, like, having that mindset of, like, everything is networking has helped me grow a lot.
I love that. That last line is absolutely gold. Anyone listening, you can find out if a potential significant other candidate, what kind of job they have. Connect on LinkedIn first. Don't give out your Instas. I love that.
Exactly.
Cool, Amanda. This was honestly one of the most enjoyable interviews I've had. Before we wrap up, where can people go to learn more about you and learn more about Pivot to Partnerships?
Yeah, I'd say easiest place to reach me is on LinkedIn, um
No surprise.
That is where, I'm the most responsive, but obviously, the Partnership Mastermind Marketplace, my cohort is hosted on there, so you can learn more there.
Yep.
Website, it's just verydemanda.com.
Boom.
You can also find out more about me there.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much, Amanda, for the time.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. This was great.